Good morning. I just want to talk to you about why we've asked for a card template and why we've asked for that to be fairly simple. Also in profile, recognizable shape, nice and stable, and within a maximum size of around 140 millimeters for you. So basically, depending on your toy shape that you've chosen, we need to somehow make your toy solid to go on top of the frame. And we're going to cut that out of wood, and what we want is a simple card template, something like this, that we can just put down onto a piece of MDF, draw around from the card, making sure when we locate that we get it into the corners, and then we can have a guide to follow to cut it out. It's much simpler to have something that you can mark on and something that you can carry around with you in case you've an issue with the wood, or you change your design, or you need to make it again. Then you've still got your card template there. We're not having to sketch every time. Why does it need to be simple? Well, if you have a quick look at, for example, this one here, the template's been taken from the internet, but there's a fair amount of detail going on in that, and if I flip it, you can actually see that there's quite a lot of cutting involved. You imagine cutting out with a coping saw and sanding and finishing properly all of these little corners. That's a relatively complex job. That's okay if that's within your time frame you've got left and your ability and your interest area, but it's not a great idea if you don't feel that you're able to successfully do a lot of cutting. You can go to something much more simple like this, and if I flip this so that you can see the outline of what we've got, there are probably 2, maybe 3 little areas of detail, because we've actually decided not to drill and cut out down here and not to cut out down here, because that will weaken the object. Okay. Ones that go on the follower don't need to have a stable bottom. However, if you're doing something, say for example you are doing the boat and you're doing something whereby you've got a series of waves, they're going to be sitting at the front of your toy, and this is going to come up and down on the follower. Whilst this doesn't need to have a flat bottom because we'll drill the follower in, this one very much does. So I have seen things that are going to sit straight down onto the toy, but there's very little gluing area left when we look at this little pot of gold, which is a cool design. That's easy to adapt. All we need to do is choose our template wisely and then slice a part off the bottom, so we've got good gluing area, good surface contact there. You could potentially pin this to the front. I don't recommend it. Often the pine will split and it isn't a great join. So keeping anything that needs to be at the front nice and stable. Don't be afraid to stylize things, so we know full well this is a cloud. It doesn't matter that it's got a flat bottom, we still read that as a cloud once we put an aeroplane up behind it. Okay, so it needs to be simple. It needs to be recognizable. Now, I had one here that I was going to show to you. It's okay to download a template from the internet. It's also, by the way, okay to sketch up your own. Don't feel you need to constantly print things from online and steal them. Your own ideas and your own drawings are good enough. If you end up with a shape that is not side-on view, which is what I've written in profile, you end up with something like this. So this, best guess at the moment, would be a kind of flattish, squarish fish, but it's actually, I'm sure you recognise that. So a little bit, because we've got things in front of other things, a little bit because of the simplification that needed to go on. Now you will paint your toy, but you may struggle if you don't choose a shape that's sitting exactly in profile. And I've got an example. This one's borderline, so it may work okay, but when we're seeing things come towards us on an image, so you know the head is turned, it's much nearer to the camera essentially than the body is, and the neck is not in profile. The neck we're seeing straight on. It's unlikely that objects that you see looking straight on at you are going to be as recognizable as completely side-on ones. Again, if it needed a bit more stability, that one probably went on the follower, but if that one needed to attach compared to the height of the object, we do not have a lot of gluing surface area. It's going to be top heavy, and it's going to be weighted off to the side as well. You need to make sure that it's stable in terms of its height and size in relation to the toy. So I think I might have had a example somewhere, but don't forget we've got our toy frame here, and I've also seen ones which have, for example, gone completely out of scale. So this is actually a fairly small component of something much bigger. Don't forget it's possible to end up with things on here that are too high. So if we were to maybe print this out at this size, the height of that compared to the frame of the toy is starting to get, you know, topply anyway. So do use your frame to size it, but we want you to end up with a template for anything that's going out the front and a template for anything that's going onto the follower that you need to make out of wood. So and those need to be sized accordingly to each other and accordingly to the toy. We don't want things overhanging the edges of the toy, and we just want to come up with a little card template we can take back to the workshop, cut around, and we've checked it works. I advise you also to mark on where the follower will go, and to think about that, because in this toy instance it's the mouth that's going to move. Be careful that if you need a follower to come up through here, you're not making your toy so big that those followers that aren't going to go on the centre end up having to try to run through the sidewall, or your toy is going to get shoved over there and make the whole thing kind of misweighted, just because you haven't thought about its size in relation to where the follower needs to go, as well as in relation to how stable it is in proportion to the frame. When you've got a successful template, and it's why we've written you this checklist on here of the things I just talked through, all I want you to do on this page is just pop your template on and draw around it, so we've got a record in case we lose the template, because these in B15 are could go anywhere. Final thing, and I'm not sure if I've got it on there, it would fall within stable, but you don't want really thin bits. We know this, even though it's MDF and it's not got a grain in it. I don't want really anyone to go under 10 millimeters. That's a centimetre to some of you. Okay, this one's probably on the slightly thin side. Anything with tall, thin components is sort of asking to be pretty unstable. That's up for discussion. Maybe that some of them need to use a little bit of dowel rod for good reason. The majority of them, with your ability to develop your design, you're going to make a card template that works. Good luck.